I, not long ago, praised Michael Mann in my The Last of the Mohicans video, and I mentioned my appreciation therein for the aesthetic of Mann's 2015 feature Blackhat. Blackhat has been abundantly dismissed as the film which cast Chris Hemsworth as a genius computer hacker, and whilst it can certainly still be ridiculed for that, I'd encourage hesitation toward an outright dismissal of Blackhat, as I hinted earlier, due to its visual wizardry. As a piece of pure cinema, a film to feel through rather than read with, Blackhat is a very rewarding experience, I think. Stuart Dryburgh's cinematography is superlative, and then its use of CGI at times to illustrate the networks and grids of information sharing technology is quite bold, and possibly a manifestation of what revered cyberpunk scribe Bruce Sterling would term nowpunk. If The Matrix, the immediate point of comparison to these moments in Blackhat, was a paragon of cyberpunk, then roughly 15 years on, Michael Mann announces the irrelevance of futuristic or speculative cyber-controlled dystopias. We've arrived at one. And do not fret, not entirely, if you bemoan at the prospect of only enjoying a film for its cinematography or technical attributes in general. Blackhat's screenplay, credited to one Morgan David Fowle, is quite strong if one chooses to invest themselves in it. I find it remarkable how a contemporary espionage globe-trotting thriller can still exist in the extremely intricately connected, complicated and advanced 2010s epoch. In the time of mass surveillance, which no one can do anything about, how do we write these on-the-run protagonist or antagonist narratives for our post-NSA cyberspace era? Blackhat offers an example, although its attention to detail, striving for accuracy in the field of cybersecurity, depicting a logical and believable set of responses from the global establishment, it sets it apart from a typical example of this in Hollywood or anywhere else. I mean, except maybe the whole super hacker out of prison thing. But even with that in mind, the decisions made by all of the characters in their efforts to track down their criminal fugitives, and these villains' efforts to cover their trail, were extremely considered and researched by its screenwriter. Credit presumably must be given to technical advisors such as former hackers Kevin Poulsen and Christopher McKinley. Poulsen was interviewed regarding this film's perceived accuracy, and I have some choice quotes to share from it. The biggest thing it got right was broadly the international nature of cybercrime, how a single attack can implicate so many countries. It's going to go through a bunch of different servers, and it can be very hard to pin down who's behind it. But that's something that hasn't really been done in movies before. Then we put a lot of work into finding plausible ways that malware and hosting arrangements and all these other things could be used to advance the plot, and all of that I think turned out pretty nice. When I learned that he planned on trying to visualize computer intrusion with graphics, I immediately thought of all these other movies where that's been done just horribly, and I voiced that concern, and he wound up having this very specific plan to make it this very physical look, and I think he actually got the EDA file for an actual chipset and motherboard and put that right into the CGI, so it's actually very authentic. So far, the feedback I've gotten from computer security geeks who've seen the film has been positive. So far, at least the people that have reached out to me and that have talked about it have had good things to say about the level of authenticity. Obviously, it's not a documentary, but as far as, like Hollywood blockbuster treatment of computer hacking, I think this is the most authentic that's been done. Most hackers are better looking than Chris Hemsworth. Tremendously insightful interview of Kevin Poulsen. That's from Gizmodo, from 2015, around the time of the film's initial release. Actually, Poulsen's own journalistic article Kingpin from 2012 on the subject of real-life hacker Max Butler is allegedly what had inspired Michael Mann to compose what we see in Blackhat. I suppose even the super hacker thing has some basis in reality. Now, I realise that I may have misled my viewers here. I think I have. I'll correct that now. The version of the film I am viewing, which is not available, well, easily let's say, is a director's cut which only aired on television once and was apparently available for some time on an American streaming service before being removed, although yes, copies can circulate around. The major difference in the director's cut is that the nuclear reactor attack sequence is moved from the opening of the film to the middle of the film. When I first saw this film around its release, I wasn't as impressed with it, not really considering it photographically, and I found its immediate onslaught of tension to come across forced and a bit too typical of Hollywood's tendency to cater to shorter attention spans. For a director's cut, the screenplay which I praised before becomes, well, I suppose, praiseworthy in the first place. Blackhat is far from perfect. In fact, I'm almost surprised that this film didn't come under some attack for its vaguely crude treatment of Tang Wei's character. I mean, I'm not on the hunt for this sort of thing but even I'm considering this, a tad problematic, or at least a bit dated and sleazy. Maybe I'm in error, but I don't know. I couldn't help but think, this isn't considered cool, right? Nevertheless, I still consider Blackhat, from a filmmaking perspective, one of the most impressive titles of the 2010s and thus far of the 21st century. Its existence as a paragon of now punk, well, that's just an added bonus, I suppose. Have a great day, everyone.